How do we come up with ideas? And how can we start to develop these ideas further so that it eventually manifests into a finished story? Sometimes when approaching a new comic book project, we come in guns blazing, all ready with a brand new idea. But what happens when you get excited and ready to work on comics, but you have no ideas yet? That definitely can happen. It's happened to me for sure, and today I'm going to share with you some tips of how I've been able to tap from a spring of endless ideas for stories, and you can too. The first thing is environment. Possibly the most obvious, but maybe the most powerful place to find never-ending ideas is your environment. Similar to drawing, one of the best ways to level up is to get into the practice of observation. Look around you, wherever you are, and pay attention. When you're at school, your job, waiting at a bus stop, hanging out in a public place, taking a walk in the woods or around your town or city, just observe the world around you. Observe the people and what they are saying and imagine what may have led them to say that. If you can't hear them, make up your own story about them based on their body language. Maybe you see an abandoned building or something. Imagine what it used to be. Ask yourself questions about everything you see. One of the most powerful questions you can ask when mining for ideas is, what if? What if that abandoned building was once a popular barbershop that was a front for a gang operation where they made drugs in the back room and it got busted and shut down by local cops? What if that abandoned building was a scientific lab for someone who was trying to time travel so they could make things right with someone they wronged? Maybe this is the kind of thinking that sparked the idea for the movie Back to the Future. I don't know, it could be. Recently at my day job, I witnessed some ravens building a huge nest in the roof rafters of an overhang. It made me think about ravens and wonder if there's some kind of story I could come up with as I watch them live their raven lives. As I started to think about it, it turns out it wasn't enough of an inspiration to propel me to a comic idea just yet. So I began to ask myself, what would make this seemingly boring idea more interesting? I mulled it around in my head for a bit silently, and a silly phrase came to my mind. What if I changed the sitcom title of Everyone Loves Raymond to Everyone Loves Raven? Suddenly a whole host of ideas started popping in my head of where I might go with this idea. I still don't know exactly where this idea may go, but the point I'm trying to make is to never underestimate the power of simply observing your environment and then just asking questions. This is actually one of the most fun parts of creating something. You get a chance to let your imagination run wild and the possibilities are endless. There's no rules at this point. You're not looking for a fully formed idea, you're really just looking for a jumping off point. Another great way to generate ideas is random prompts. There's nothing wrong with taking some words from a hat or a random word generator on a website and seeing what kind of story you can come up with. There once was a man named Theodore Geisel who created a couple of children's books that did well, but it wasn't until he used two arbitrary words that rhymed, cat and hat, that his legacy as Dr. Seuss really took off and delighted the hearts and imaginations of children worldwide. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Seuss, and I was amazed when I heard that this is how his legacy basically started. Here's another cool example. A comic-making, YouTubing buddy of mine, Christopher Runciman, has a daily show on his channel at 2 p.m. every weekday, where he takes similar word prompts or silly phrases or anything suggested by his audience and uses it to create a brand new one-page comic. He's definitely an inspiration to me, and he's worth checking out. I'll leave a link for you to find him. The point is, whether you're writing your next graphic novel or you want to simply play with the medium of comics, a random prompt can take you a very long way. There are so many ways to take a simple idea and develop it into a bigger, full story, and I can't get into all of those ways today, but one way that I think is really helpful to get you started in developing these ideas is to take a look at your own experiences. There's some time-honored advice that anyone who has ever endeavored to be a storyteller has heard at some point in their life, and that advice is, write what you know. However, this advice has often been misunderstood to mean write only things you have experienced firsthand in a very literal sense. I misunderstood this for most of my life as well, but a good friend explained it to me recently, and it's become a real game changer in how I approach my work. Write what you know isn't meant to be taken as you can only write about growing up, going to school, or working at the local grocery store if that's all you've experienced in life. It means write what you know emotionally. If you've ever experienced something like the uncomfortable feeling and awkwardness of starting at your first job, then you can take those same feelings and use them to tell a story of a young boy starting his first day at a magical school known as Hogwarts. Even though you've never actually experienced levitating a feather with your magic wand while mispronouncing the required incantation, you can understand the embarrassment or disappointment your character may be going through. And your audience has probably gone through something similar as well, so it'll hit them right in the feels, and the experience will be shared. This is the actual magic of effective storytelling. Once you tap into an experience like this, you can map these feelings onto endless scenarios in any kind of world, and it will work. Your literal experience is limited, but the places you can take the feeling of those experiences are unlimited. Adding your experience to your idea can really take this idea to the next level. Another thing you can do once you've found a jumping off point is to do some light research on what you've come up with. I haven't started researching ravens much yet, but I know from experience if I do, I will start to find interesting facts that will trigger my imagination. Again, asking myself questions at this point can prompt all kinds of ideas and where I may take the story. If I find out something interesting about ravens' mating rituals and I decide to write an anthropomorphized version of a raven, which is a fancy word for humanizing an animal in fiction, then I can find a fun or interesting way to incorporate that mating ritual into the romantic relationship between, say, a raven and a chicken. Feel free to let your mind run wild at this point when working out your own ideas. I will say one warning, however, that is to be very careful to not let your research lure you into the infinite wasteland known as world building. There are many creatures in that realm that will be happy to eat away at your time and progress until you lose sight of your story and abandon your project altogether. There's a time and a place for this type of thing, but less time is needed for it than you may think. Regardless, there are endless ways to come up with ideas and develop ideas for your next project. And as you develop these ideas, it is important to start thinking about what kind of characters you will need for your story idea. What kind of characters will really help you express what you want to share to the world. If you'd like to explore designing these kind of characters further, check out this video right here. It's more about the visual aspect of character design, and I hope it will help you in your journey to making your comics and telling your story.